Welcome to FreeMMOStation. I'm Skylin, and today we're going to do a first impression look at a new free-to-play MOBA for Xbox One and PC that's cross-platform. Woo! Gigantic.
FreeMMOStation.com.
Okay, so first things first, Gigantic. What is Gigantic? Gigantic is a MOBA, and I think the developers maybe want to try to get away from that stigma, but it is a MOBA. So think a standard MOBA, but instead of towers, and well, instead of lanes as well, you have like really dynamic maps. They're way different than just normal standard maps. But instead of having towers, you have creatures that you summon at specific little capture points. And you can summon all sorts of different kinds of creatures. You can have healing creatures, you can have sieging creatures, you can have like creatures that reveal people, you can have really tanky creatures that kind of help defend you, and they're very defensive themselves. Yeah, so you summon creatures that kind of buff you, they have environmental impacts. It's pretty awesome. It's more than just a simple tower sitting in a lane. However, you don't have creeps, you also don't have an item shop, and instead of having a static throne or objective, which would be kind of similar to League of Legends Nexus or the Ancient in Dota 2, it's kind of similar, more similar to Smite. Well, actually, this game is just overall more similar to Smite, as it's like, you know, the whole action MOBA genre, whatever, if that's a thing. It's a thing now. Anyways, it's more like the Titans in Smite because the giant, you know, the namesake, the gigantic creature, the Guardian, actually moves and attacks and has its own like sort of like raid abilities and phases. It's pretty interesting, pretty awesome. We're definitely gonna go in depth on that. But yeah, that's basically it. You have a giant, you have a map, summon creatures, and you just kind of fight. You just kind of brawl it, you just shoot, and it basically plays like an arena shooter with just some added mechanics. A lot of added and hidden unintuitive mechanics, and we will talk about this. Maybe it'll be more clear, it'll be elucidated later, maybe with a better tutorial, maybe with better UI elements, whatever. I do believe that some of these mechanics will be explained better, but basically guys, honestly, I'm gonna be real with you. I tried to do this first impression like 3 different times. I ranted for like 30 minutes each time, just trying to explain all of the high-level mechanics of the game, and I still don't even know half this shit. Like, it's ridiculous, it's crazy, but maybe that's a good thing, because that's how Counter-Strike is, right? I mean, maybe it's a good thing, but then again, Guild Wars 2 is kind of like that, and it doesn't really have that high of a viewership with esports, so I don't know. I'm not saying Guild Wars 2 is bad, it's just there's a lot of mechanics that you don't know until you're like hundreds of hours in, and it's not that fun learning. So I will say that, my first impression, here we go, spoiler alert, how I feel about the game. I like the game, and I'm super hopeful for it, but it's really fun playing Gigantic. It's just not fun learning Gigantic, know what I'm saying? But I'm here to do my first impression, and since I can't, you know, it's so early in development, I can't really review the game, I'll just sort of, you know, spout out the facts of the game, and then some of my opinions on what I think should change and might change in the future and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's going to be kind of a casual first impression. Hopefully you respect that, because the game isn't in a, it's not really in a form to be critiqued properly. But I am gonna critique the shit out of what I played. I'm just saying. So menus are garbage, basically. They don't feel well. I think there's like mouse acceleration, which is really bad for a PC game. The game is being built for Xbox, so I mean, overall the design is really minimalistic. It's really clean from the cartoon look all the way to the menus. Yes, it is really minimalistic. It's really easy to see, eye-catching, blah, blah, blah. It looks good. It's just the actual playing the game, just navigating the menus with the mouse is ugly. I have not played with a controller yet. I assume it's going to be good because the game is being made for Xbox. So yeah, every other game that's been made for consoles or with consoles in mind has generally been very much more in favor of console players. So it's, you know, it's designed better for them. We don't get our own UI or anything for PC. It seems like that's probably the same for Gigantic. It looks good, but like for instance, whenever you're trying to level up, it's super awkward to find your mouse and then click upgrade and level up and all that good stuff. Yeah, so menu is pretty garbage, but then again, they said that they are going to overhaul it, they're going to change it, they're going to upgrade it. It's just the menus are kind of just there to be functional so that you can actually get into the game. Menus will be changed, but at this point in time, it's ugly, it's not fun. That's all I gotta say about the menus. But the game does look good, it does run well, you know, other than being a Windows application game that I can't record the source for. There is a lot of awkwardness, a lot of crashing, a lot of bugs, and pretty much blah, 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 you know, early access. This is truly a beta. I mean, there's a reason why it's closed beta, and there's a reason why they only just now lifted the NDA. Like, seriously, the game was not ready. It's not ready to be released. Even though I think they had an expected release date of 2015, it wasn't ready, and it's not ready. Even though it looks really good. I mean, you're probably looking at the gameplay and like, oh, wow, that looks real fun. Dude, it is really fun. It is. but there's so much that needs to be added to the game to make it great. It's an okay game now. It's a good game, but it's not a great game, and it can be a great game. So, yeah, the game is fun. Let's get past all the awkwardness though. Yes, it's early access. It's kind of buggy and stuff, but let's move on. Let's talk about some things that we can be hopeful for. Okay, like the mechanics of the game, how it actually plays, and all that good stuff. So when you start the game, you have to summon the creatures in all these different areas. It's not like you pick preemptively, though you do have to choose your creatures that you can potentially spawn in. It's sort of like a loadout. You get 3. So I like to have the dragon, the Cerberus, and the bloomer. So that's a healer, that's a revealer, and that is a sieger. And these creatures, they can be summoned without any cost whatsoever. Even if they're killed, you can resummon them on a slot, and you can also take over, like if you kill their creature, you can actually take over and summon your own creature. However, to upgrade them, because you have like sort of baby versions of these creatures, to upgrade them, they actually cost focus, and focus is your ultimate. It's like your ultimate meter. So you can use ultimate meter as an ultimate, or you can use it as a currency to upgrade creatures, and then it takes time to actually upgrade them, and they can be killed before they're actually summoned. And that really sucks for me because I like to summon the dragons, and the dragons take a long time to summon, and they get killed, and I hate it, and it makes me sad. Or you could just use, you know, your focus for your ultimate abilities, which are generally very big and stuff like that. So that's pretty much like the focus of the game is summoning the creatures, and there's like this mechanic where over time the creatures, or where the creatures spawn, I think it's sort of like nodes, like they're energy nodes or energy fonts. Or I don't know what the lore reason is. I guess I can't really delve into it, but mechanically what happens is that every certain period of time, an energy orb comes into that node, and then that energy is absorbed. Either if there's no monster there, a player can go and take it, or if there is a creature there, whatever team owns that creature will take that energy, and then the energy goes to the Guardian. Now, we will kind of skip that for a second, and we'll talk about fighting. So whenever you're fighting people, well, of course, you can die, they can die, damage is dealt, things happen, or you're killing another creature. Basically, through doing stuff in the game, summoning creatures or fighting, you are gathering energy to put into your Guardian, into your Giant. You can also directly steal energy from the enemy Guardian by attacking their power crystals, which is kind of hard because like a raid boss, they have their own unique attacks. It's not just like a simple auto attack like the Titans and Smite. No, they summon like freaking tornadoes and energy blasts, and they jump around, and it's pretty crazy. So certain characters that are generally like longer range and have like more sure auto attacks, like straight shots and stuff like that, you know, just overall easy, big explosion, long range, safe attacks, those are going to be the ones that are good for sieging. So people that lob grenades, in like Sven, he's not very long range. He's probably, you know, he's more support oriented, but overall it's very hard to steal or hit the Guardian. So generally you're not going to do that with him. So that's kind of the meta of the game. Is you have people that are kind of like assassins, and they get the most energy from killing people. So that's what you want to do. You want to go and be sort of killing people, jumping in the back of team fights, doing some damage, or run and gun, just kind of running around the map, picking off people. That's what you do. That's sort of like the archetype. And then you have your supports, which kind of sit around with people, hang out with people, try to defend some creatures. You kind of just like sit in between creatures, and you know, the assassins kind of running around the map. You're kind of like midway. You're just kind of support a little bit, do a little bit of damage, you know, kind of defend a little bit. You're just kind of everywhere, just trying to do the best you can. You're probably not going to show up too high on the leaderboards anywhere. It's not like you're going to be getting any pentakills, but overall you are kind of like the, I don't know, you're the glue of the team. And then you have sort of tanks. Now these are the guys that want team fights. These are the guys that want, I mean, they're kind of like assassins in a way, right? Like, but you want to group up, and they're probably going to be hanging out with the supports a lot, or just kind of overall grouping with other people. And these are the guys that jump in and do the damage, and they do a lot of CC. And these are guys that generally they don't want to directly attack the Giant, but they might defend it often, and they might be jumping around and trying to just catch out multiple people. Overall, though, I think there's like only one tank. I mean, Wu is kind of a tank, but yeah, I think probably Wu-ish. And then you also have the Margrave, which is who I'm playing. Now, I think Gnosis, however you pronounce it, he's supposed to be kind of a tank, maybe also. And then Aisling or Ashling, I don't know how to pronounce these names, guys. She's not really a tank, but she can kind of do some tanky thing. I don't know. Honestly, the archetypes of these characters, and I'm trying to describe the meta because it's pretty important in a lot of MOBAs, it's just awkward. So, for instance, in Heroes of the Storm, I play the Siegers. In Dota 2, I play the like the micro heavy people, the people that summon lots of units to also split push. Overall, I like split pushing, I like taking structures. I don't like direct PvP a lot of the time. I like to be kind of strategic. Now, in this game, you don't quite have that archetype. In fact, you don't have a lot of the normal archetypes. You don't have split pushers, junglers. You don't generally, I mean, you kind of have support. You have like utility, but you can also go damage with these characters. Like overall, you don't have set archetypes for pretty much any of these characters. You can do a whole lot of craziness, I think. It's basically because of the mechanics, because the game is very mechanically heavy, because it is a shooter. Also because it's not environmentally similar to other MOBAs. I mean, you do have, I kind of made analogies that you do have towers and you do have like a Nexus/Giant, but it really don't. I mean, it's basically an arena shooter with MOBA elements. That's basically how it is. It's not really a MOBA with arena shooter elements. It's arena shooter with MOBA elements added in. So most of the game is going to be just kind of like, it's firefights. It's a lot of action all the time, non-stop. And because of that, because it is non-stop action, a lot of these characters are kind of missing elements from other MOBAs. For instance, you're not going to have many people, actually, there's like only there's 2 people that have summons. So yeah, if we look to Smite, kind of, it's probably going to be similar. Like Smite doesn't have many like Necromancer or Summony. You know, basically generally in a mechanical game or mechanical games in period, generally don't have very strategic elements to them. I mean, it's kind of a sacrifice you make. I don't think it's a sacrifice that needs to be made personally. But so Gigantic kind of has some cool elements. Like you do have summonable units with Iceling or Ashling, at least, sort of, kind of. There is strategy with your different builds that you can do. But at the same time, I do want to say that people moving from MOBA to MOBA are looking for a game that's like a MOBA but with more action. That's actually, you're not really going to get that from Gigantic. That's it's just not how it works. I mean, you kind of have utility support-ish characters. You kind of have like some tanky characters. You kind of have some assassin-y characters. But really, it kind of just feels like they're actually all sort of a similar archetype. Like everyone is kind of pretty tanky. Everyone is incredibly mobile. Everyone can potentially do lots of damage. Either it's AoE or single target, but that's kind of how it is, you know? It's like either they're a little bit tankier, they do a little bit more damage, they're a little bit more ranged, they're a little bit more sneaky. I mean, it's just like a little bit more for each of these guys. It's not like you're gonna have the differentiation that you do in Dota 2, right? Like Dota 2, you have somebody that just lays mines. Like literally, they are the miner. That's what they freaking do. You have somebody that's constantly, literally running through the map non-stop, Spirit Breaker. So you're not gonna have that differentiation with this game. But since it is such a mechanical game, they will in fact feel very different. So when you're playing these guys, how they do their damage is very different. It takes different skill sets. It's pretty interesting, but it's all very mechanical. It's, you know, that's just completely focused on mechanics. Less on strategy, less on tactics. And that's just how it is. Heroes of the Storm is a very tactical game, but honestly not very mechanical. Gigantic, very mechanical, but not very strategic. Dota 2, very strategic, pretty tactical, but honestly lacks a lot of mechanics. Unless you play very specific characters. And I know there's exemptions for certain characters and different game modes and different maps for these different games, but generally that's kind of how it works, okay? And League of Legends is a very fair blend of all three, which is why it's very popular. Now, Gigantic, because it does focus on mechanics, it's going to turn off a lot of people. It is very hard to aim in this game. There are very, very many, lots of little niche mechanical things to this game. Okay, so for instance, whenever you attack, you move slightly slower. You also have to manage your stamina bar, which is kind of cool. That's kind of like a MOBA-ish element that's also very in-depth, right? Like, holy crap, we could literally do an entire video talking about just the stamina system and how it works, because basically, the stamina system, okay, let's assume you're a decent aimer. Okay, the stamina system determines the better player. Whoever can manage that system, the stamina, better, is going to win. The team that is, you know, more experienced is going to win because of the stamina system, because it's very unique to Gigantic. I kind of wish I could just say, like, oh yeah, you have the stamina system, you run whenever it's full, and if it's empty, you can't run anymore. But it's way deeper than that. Holy shit. It's crazy. It's deep. The dodge system, which is kind of tied into the stamina system, like for instance, you can't dodge forward or diagonally, like in Guild Wars 2. You can only dodge with A, D, and S. So that's left, right, and backwards. which is it's unintuitive, it's awkward, but at the same time that can add in some mechanics, right? So if you want to dodge, like if you have an like sort of an attribute to give you a crit after a dodge, so you're an assassin, right? But you don't want to dodge defensively, you want to dodge forward. Like that's what you want to do, so you get a crit and kill somebody. So what you have to do is you gotta curve your camera diagonally, dodge to the right or left, so that you kind of roll into them and then attack. And so in a way, you know, it adds mechanics, it adds some depth to the game, though it's totally unintuitive. And that's pretty much the story of, holy shit, that's pretty much the story of my first impressions, dude. Like I've done this I've re-recorded this first impression so many times, trying to catch a balance between high level and low level, because this is a first impression. It's not a full review, and it's not a full spotlight on every, like literally I could do a video on pretty much every single individual character, on every individual mechanic. Gigantic is a pretty deep game. It's very unintuitive, so it's very hard to get into and understand these mechanics, so there's a lot to talk about. But it puts me in an awkward space, you know, for doing this video here for FreeMMOStation. But basically, man, the stamina system is crazy complicated. The movement system is crazy complicated. I mean, even the animation work is like very interesting and I think very competitive, because every single animation is just incredibly well done. Let me just say that. The graphics of the game, everything's running really great. The animations are great. But like the way animations work, you can kind of see the momentum of the character. So if you see their body kind of moving in a certain way, you can start to tell which direction they might start to head in. Or games like League of Legends and Smite, like people can kind of turn on a dime, they can move on a dime, so you can't really tell. So this kind of goes back to Dota 2, where there's mechanics with the turn rate. Yeah, I mean, it's stuff like that. It's like from the smallest little things in this game, from the freaking animations of the characters, adds a huge amount of depth. So I could go on and on and on, but I'm gonna try not to. I'm gonna try to finish it. I'm gonna try to actually, you know, put out this first impression. But hey, we got 27 minutes to fill, so why not? Anyways. So yeah, basically the mechanics are really intense. Now aiming, which is this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, but the FOV is kind of low. Also the option, I mean, I'm sure that could change, but it's something I want to mention. The FOV is pretty low. The camera for a third-person shooter is kind of awkward. And also, so much of the time, I'm just kind of staring at my UI. And I guess I could rant about this. I'm not going to do it too much. But because it's, okay, like Gears of War, right, is just a pure freaking shooter. You barely have to look at the UI other than for the active reload. Pretty minimalistic design, like there's almost no UI. It's just you're looking at the screen, you're looking at the action, and your health bar is like the screen fades in, kind of like Call of Duty. You know, there's some really smart UI designs there. In this, it's more like a standard MOBA. So even though it's so action-based and it's very aim-based, like you need to be focused on the action, a lot of the times you're just going to be kind of staring at your cooldowns. And this is definitely a problem, especially if you're a tank and you need your CC more than actually trying to aim for a melee hit, which is, you know, it's honestly, you don't need to aim that much for a melee hit for a tank that has, you know, such a huge, wide arcing melee. So yeah, a lot of the times you are just going to be staring at your cooldowns. I kind of wish that they made the cooldowns more visible to the characters, and League of Legends is starting to do this. They're going away from just staring at cooldowns, and they're making their cooldowns more visible, which also adds counterplay. So, for instance, if I were to do an example, let's take the character I'm playing now. So his fist is on fire. Maybe if my so I do this one attack that engulfs my fist in even more fire, and like I create a shield of fire. It would be cool if whenever that was off cooldown and I was ready to use it, that if my hand was actually much brighter than before, or actually did catch on fire, so that people knew, okay, he can do that move at any moment, and then I would also know that I could do that at any moment, and then they could essentially, like, you know, minimize the UI and make it smaller and stuff like that. It's just a small thing, you know. Whenever you take MOBA elements, which is a top-down game, a more strategic game, and put it into a mechanical game, these are the things that's gonna kind of like, you know, it's gonna start to feel kind of weird. It's like I should be aiming at this guy, but I kind of want to see my cooldowns. You know, I don't know. It's just awkward learning the game. You know, it's not that fun to learn the game. It feels kind of weird. It's kind of awkward. It's a very different game. I mean, this is a totally new genre that's emerging, that Smite kind of started. You know, there's Monday Night Combat. There's a couple other games that kind of like, I've tried doing it, but I think Gigantic is really going to be one of the games that makes it really big, hopefully. I mean, Smite, you know, Smite was huge, but Gigantic is like a whole new beast, like I said. It's a shooter that has MOBA elements, kind of like Overwatch. Now, the Giants, you don't choose the Giants. They are preset per the map, and they do act kind of different, but I do believe it's balanced. I know they seem different and they do have different attacks, but overall I do believe it's pretty symmetrical. I don't think you can count it as asymmetrical. Like, all the maps have been completely symmetrical that I've played, and I don't know, I never felt like one giant was overall better than the other. That might be the case. I don't know. I'm just saying, all in all, the game seems pretty fair. It seems pretty competitive. I mean, once you understand the mechanics, pretty competitive. But one thing that I haven't mentioned yet is the different phases of these giants. So the giants have these different multiple phases where they, if they have enough power, they'll go attack, or it's kind of weird. They don't just move through the map. They teleport halfway through the map. But there's also this like system where it's called Clash Arena. Honestly, I don't quite know all the mechanics of that. Hopefully a community coach could jump into this video and talk about it. But basically, like, there's this phase of the game where it's called Clash Arena, and you can't summon any more monsters, and then stuff happens. Like, the creatures move to a separate part of the map, and then your spawns are also different. And I don't know. It's kind of cool. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of ridiculous. It just changes up the game a little bit. It could be fun, but I still don't quite understand all of it. I've got a lot of hours in the game, but it's just something that just needs some explaining, man. It really does. Like, it's not something like, actually, much of this game, like, you can't just jump in and be like, oh, I totally know how to play this game. It reminds me a lot of playing Guild Wars 2. Like, I jumped into Guild Wars 2, and mechanically, I was amazing at the game. But if you don't understand everything about the game, all the statistics, the math, then you're just gonna get trolled on, right? Okay, so that's basically how Gigantic is, man. It's just, I don't know. I guess that's probably why I only do good playing the tank, because everyone is so tanky, everyone just runs away so fast. It's just, there's so much to the game, and as a tank, you can kind of just jump in and wreck shit, and I guess you don't have to think. So maybe that's why, but yeah, if you want to play an assassin, you definitely need to know your shit just a little bit. And if you want to play somebody that is out to siege the enemy, I don't even know if that's going to be like an archetype or like a role, but if you're going to be somebody that sieges the enemy giant or the guardian, because you can actually hit their crystals and steal power, you're probably gonna have to, know your shit too. You're gonna have to know spawns and stuff like that. Also, dude, like, here's another hidden mechanic that I only just now found out yesterday, is when you die, okay, say I die, and then I respawn in 5 seconds. Well, if my teammate just dies, that actually adds on to my death timer. So as a team, if you wipe, huge death timers and you're punished severely. But if you're a roamer and you die, not so bad, actually. So, yeah, I mean, that's a thing. You can still kind of feed, of course, because you're feeding power. People level up, and, you can kind of still feed. But at the same time, it's not like it's going to be like Dota 2, where if that one guy gets first blood, he's pretty much going to snowball the whole freaking game. It's a little bit different, man. It's a little bit different. I still don't really know the ebb and flow of the game. I just know that there's a whole lot of phases and a whole lot of weirdness, and the giants react differently during different times, and the terrain actually changes. Like, I know in one map, like, the different walls, different sight lines crumble down during different parts of the map. It's crazy, man. I don't know. I'll be real with you guys. I don't know a lot about the game. It seems like anything I could say, like, I just feel like every single time, like, a developer or a community member comes up and is like, oh, that's gonna change. Oh, you don't actually know all the mechanics. That's basically it, dude. Like, I'm trying so hard with this first impression, but I've recorded it like 3 different times, dude, like 30 minutes each, and I know that I will be told that I am wrong, that there's like so much more to the game, that it will change, and honestly, I'm not ready for that flame. I'm not ready to be disclaimed like that, so I'm gonna end the first impression. I did the best that I could, but honestly, the game just is throwing me for a loop. Normally, for first impressions, I can kind of guesstimate and assume some things, but with Gigantic, I honestly don't know. There's just a whole lot of hidden potential with the game, but as a first impression, I will say, it's pretty hard to get into as a new player. It looks awesome, but when you get into it, it's actually like a way different beast than you're prepared for. If you're looking for a really complicated and very difficult game to actually play, like, it's hard to aim, hard to understand some of the mechanics. If you're looking for a game that is going to suck hours and hours out of your life, then, well, I mean, I guess that sounds like any MOBA, really. Well, then, yeah, Gigantic is your game, and at least it's an awesome spectacle, I will say that. So thanks for watching. I'm Skyline with FreeMMOStation. I'm ending this first impression, man. This one is going. This one's live. Like and subscribe, and if you want to see a lot more Gigantic content, please go and subscribe to my personal channel, or like and subscribe here. We're probably going to tell you news and updates on the game anyways, and I'll see you again later.